I am Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then, buddy, you are in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and, of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
We're live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to West Point, Mississippi. It's another rainy day. Imagine that, Lanny.
Yeah, I thought it was going to hold off till after lunch, but we ended up getting it in the morning.
Actually, when I look at the weather, it looks like after today, we got some sunshine for a while.
I don't trust it an hour in advance anymore. So that's what it said about today. Woke up this morning, 15% chance of rain. Looked at it 30 minutes later, 40% chance of rain. Looked at it 10 minutes later, 68% chance of rain. And then 30 minutes later, it's pouring.
Yeah.
And still pouring now.
I learned a lot earlier this week with our buddy from Nursery.
Yeah.
I really did. So it's interesting to give me a little more perspective on these showers.
Well, there was one thing he said about these free apps we have on our phone.
Yeah.
Do you remember that,
I
Lanny?
do remember that.
Explain that real quick back to me.
So basically, they are increasing the amount of percentage of rain chances on the free weather apps to make you look at it more often. That's what he said. So you're better off getting better data through a paid app, which is interesting because you've been giving me grief for 2 years for paying for a weather app.
I have, because I thought
I just told you what happened to me this morning and how fast it was constantly changing your percentage.
Yeah.
You know, and he also explained to us, we don't need to go down all these rabbit holes because weather will be on it all day, but how that, what it means when you see 65% chance of rain is not like truly there's a 65% chance of rain. And how they calculate that and what it means. That was very educational, too.
Yeah, guys, so we'll have this podcast with Eric Snodgrass about weather.
With Nutrient Excellence.
Yeah. All I know is I can't even go pick tomatoes. Like it's full sun and windy, and you still get eaten alive by mosquitoes. I've never seen anything
Welcome to Mississippi.
like it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Everything.
So today we're going to talk about crappie.
All right.
And we got
the maestro over
we do.
here.
We have a celebrated young man over here that's just won all kind of awards and accolades.
And eats a lot of crappie.
I don't know if he eats a lot of them.
I try to eat them once a week.
There you go.
But welcome, Hayden Jeffries.
All right.
Yeah. Brandon, Mississippi. Young guy, how old are you?
I'm 25 Monday, so just turned 25.
Man,
young man.
I wish I was 25 again.
I bet you
and know
do.
what I know now.
From down there, you cut your teeth on the old Ross Barnett, I bet.
That's it. Born and raised right there outside of Jackson, Mississippi. I've been fishing Ross Barnett since I was a little kid. So
That's my stomping ground.
Yep.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, my family had a fish camp. They got rid of it, I guess, in the late 50s. I guess eminent domain. And it was called Blue Lake. It was this donut-shaped lake. And it is now underneath the Ross Barnett Reservoir.
No, low spot out
that's
there.
interesting.
Yeah, really low spot.
Who was Ross
It was
Barnett?
called the Mud Hole. He was a governor of Mississippi.
Yep, sure was.
Yeah. Well,
I grew up with his grandson.
I've always heard that's a fantastic fishing lake.
It's one of the best ones I've been on. I've been around the country looking at a lot of different lakes, and I always enjoy coming home.
And Laney, I think they've got a lot of alligators down there, too.
Oh, yeah. No,
Tons of gators everywhere.
So, look, for guys listening to this, I'm looking at Hayden, and he looks like he's about 6'3", 6'4", like you could have played like a forward in college basketball. And you've got this long hair.
Bobby always talks. I don't know why Bobby always talks about
because Bobby has
Bobby doesn't
no
have any.
hair.
Yeah,
That's right.
So it's constant. Don't take it personally. It's everybody that comes.
It's called
in.
hair envy. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I probably do. Yeah, we'll talk about hair products in a little while. So I'm sure you're good at that. But you kind of, when I remember that song, the Charlie Daniels song about Uneasy Rider rolling into Jackson, Mississippi on a Saturday night, and he had his hair stuffed with
exactly, yeah.
I kind of picture, that's what I picture when I look at you, Hayden.
That's funny.
Easy Rider.
Are you familiar with that song?
I'm not. I have to go
We'll have
listen.
to play it for him.
Yeah, if you're.
He has a much calmer response to Bobby's
antics.
Off color or off beat or whatever humor. Very calm. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's get right down to it. We're going to talk about crappie. You are a professional crappie fisherman.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough. I've been fishing full time for a little over 3.5 years now. Had a blast doing it. I got to travel the country there for a couple of years, and just awesome all the way around.
Tell us how you got started fishing. There had to be an adult somewhere in your life that brought you up.
My grandfathers, both of them fished. They would take us every chance they got. But then Dad, he loved it. Anything outdoors related, he tried to get us in there, whether it was hunting, fishing, whatever it was. And so when we were little, he would take us fishing for whatever he thought we could catch. Just, to where we could be satisfied with catching something. We may be catfishing one week, brim fishing the next. But we never really messed with crappie any. I didn't start crappie fishing until I was probably 15, 16 years old. Still a good friend to this day. He took me crappie fishing for the first time, and I fell in love with it. Started going with him basically every Sunday afternoon. He would get out of church, and we'd go crappie fishing for a little while. And so that's where it started, and it kind of just built from there.
A lot of people just think about crappie in the spring when they're spawning, but you chase them year-round, I suppose.
I fish 12 months out of the year. With advances in technology and everything else, crappie are very targetable year-round.
What do you think you like so much about it? Why did you hone in on crappie?
I don't know. I've tried to figure that out myself. I still enjoy fishing for a lot of different species, but it's just something about a crappie's brain that, I don't know. He's different.
Tox, when you were growing up on the Tom Bigby River, and did you do a lot of crappie fishing?
No, I didn't actually. I did some, but that's one thing I've always been fascinated by it because I don't know a lot about it. But
I'm the same way. Grew up in crappie country.
I was actually, we bass fished a lot, but I guess my most, catfishing, catching river catfish was my favorite thing.
Yeah, all my crappie experience was going with my granddad. He would go in the spring when they were spawning and take a bucket of minnows, and we would catch a bunch of crappie.
Yep.
My first exposure to it was actually Joe Champion down at Portland.
Oh, yeah.
Fishing off the banks with those poles. And I tell you what, I liked it. There's no doubt about it. But that time in my life, I'd kind of got established with my spring
You were in
addiction.
that, plus that down there, that's in that Miller's Ferry watershed area, which is world famous too.
Yeah, it was good.
Well,
stuff.
I almost felt like growing up, you had to pick one or other. You had to pick turkey hunting or crappie fishing.
Whoa. Unless you just hunt all day, it's the perfect combination.
It is.
Bobby hunts all
That's
day.
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I will say I've never killed a turkey.
This makes sense because I hadn't caught many crappie.
I chase crappie.
If you have an obsessive personality, don't start.
Yeah, because it'll get you.
You ever been dipping a jig down a riverbank and hear a turkey gobble?
Not that I can say.
Well, if you do, hit me up with a
Drop a
pen.
pin on
Yeah,
there.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I've killed several turkeys right near this really good crappie spot in your where you used to fish.
I could probably guess.
Yeah.
I have met a couple of guys, and I've never done this, but this sounds like this would be the ideal. But they would put in and fish down some Corps of Engineer property and crappie fish.
Hey.
Yeah.
Keep it quiet, bro.
Well, this was way down south.
Okay,
Way
that
down
sounds
south.
a lot better.
And they might be trying to catch some crappie, and if they heard a turkey gobble, they would check on X, see if they could. And if they could,
They'd probably step out of the boat.
that sounds like a lot of fun.
That sounds like
It's
something.
a terrible tactic.
Yeah.
That would be the
But one
perfect
I would
morning.
definitely use if I was crappie fisherman.
Yeah.
Fishing.
Well-
I guess you wouldn't mind. I mean, you could have a shotgun in your crappie boat.
I don't see why you couldn't.
No,
Just keep it in the rod box.
That's right.
And
In
hear
a
him
case.
gobble, go get him.
Good to go. All right, enough about that.
So before we go down this, let's start with Dudley and rapid fire. We'll get to learn a little bit about you. It's brought to you by our friends at
Nutrient.
Dudley's got one of the caps on.
All right. Hayden, are you ready for about
He don't
10
even know what he's
questions?
getting into.
I think so.
All right, so just try to be quick in your answer. We
Gonna
want
learn
to
a
get to
little
know
more.
you
Yeah,
better.
learn a little more about you.
All right, are you ready?
Yes.
Bananas in the boat. Doesn't bother me or absolutely not.
Doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Do you think largemouth bass taste good?
No.
What is your personal record crappie?
3.94.
Hey.
Pick one. Fried okra, regular fries, tots, or onion rings.
Fried okra.
Is there a perfect oil for frying fish?
I like peanut.
Okay. Have you ever fired a customer out on the water?
We went to the ramp one morning. That's all I'll say.
All right, fried fish again. Bone in or fillet?
I've always been a fillet until I tried a skinned crappie. Not scaled, but skinned, and it changed it for me.
There you go. Okay.
We'll have to talk about
What
that.
is your favorite dipping sauce for fried fish? Ketchup, whatever.
Hot sauce.
Hot sauce. All right. North Mississippi. Pick one. Grenada, Sardis, or Enid.
Grenada.
How old were you when you killed your first buck?
8, probably. Somewhere in there.
Probably need to erase this one, but do you turkey hunt in the spring or is it all fishing?
I've never killed a turkey.
All right. Have you ever caught a tagged fish a second time?
I have caught several tagged fish, but I'm not going to say that I've caught one a second time.
Second time in a row. I thought that was neat that maybe since you fish so much, maybe that's happened. And last but not least, does your long hair cover up your red neck?
My neck is actually very pale because my hair covers it up.
Okay. There you go. I didn't know if there was any truth to that from the David Allen Coe song.
Good. All kind of old country.
How does that go,
bottom.
Lang? Della, can you sing a few verses?
No.
Landy probably knows.
He can't actually. No. Let's move on.
I do know it, but I can't sing it near as well as Dudley.
I've got another question. Have you ever met or heard of Billy Joe Cross? Being that you're from Rankin County.
I don't think so.
So you were like the new generation. So
Yep.
Billy Joe Cross was the
yeah,
old crappie master.
you have replaced his
legacy.
legacy.
Look at there.
Right. He was. Yep.
In the 80s, I would
But
say.
he was in a lot of wildlife and fisheries.
Oh, yeah. He was
legend of the
really
state.
big with DU.
Yes.
But
Bigger than
he's
life.
also a famous cook. He has
Yep.
a cookbook out. But he was like
Oh, I have one.
before crappie fishing was cool, he was like the best crappie fisherman known in the area.
Yeah, super Mississippian. Yeah.
Anyway, thought I'd give a shout out. Hopefully some of his family's listening.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
Before we get too far, tell us about these skinning these crappie.
Yeah, what you skinning the crappie before you
Yeah,
fry them whole?
so I've tried eating whole crappie before where you just knock all the
Yeah, just
scales off,
scale 'em.
and I'm not a fan of it. It's kind of fishy. And so I had a guy show me one day, you take a fillet knife and run down both sides of his back and grab it with catfish pliers, and just like you would a catfish, just rip the skin off of him.
And it comes off
leaves-
without tearing the flesh.
That's right.
Wow.
And so
gonna
then
try this.
you take the fins off the top and the bottom of them, leave the tail to where you get the crunch, and just batter it.
Drop
and
him
fry
in
it.
there.
I love
And
that tail.
It's good.
Yeah, I do too.
Do you gut them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Gut them, cut their head off, all that.
And then skin them. Huh? I got some catfish skinning
You
pliers.
think the fishy taste is in the skin?
I've always heard that it is.
Well, it's in the fat. I mean,
Well,
for
it's
sure.
certainly got to contribute to it.
Yeah.
So,
It's gotta be.
Do you ever, growing up, I remember some people they'd get the eggs from a crappie and they would fry those. Have you?
I've never tried it.
I've had some mullet roe fried. I've never had crappie roe fried.
I've tried it. It really didn't do a whole lot.
I've tried a couple of catfish. We used to catch those catfish with big old
egg sacs.
Yeah, but I didn't ever like it.
Yeah. It's interesting how all the different things that different
Cultures,
regions
yeah.
of the country
Yeah.
gravitate to. And
Do you?
I mean, fish heads are a delicacy in a lot of places.
Such a big thing about crappies with the general public is such a great taste in fish and all. But have you noticed different lakes in different areas or different times of the year or whatever that different ones taste differently?
I'm gonna say it can definitely change depending on water conditions, depending on several different things. A black crappie and a white crappie can be a little different.
Is there a preference between the two, table wise?
Not really. You just want something that comes out of a fairly clean lake.
I got you.
And help me understand the black crappie and the white crappie thing. Are they together in their different parts of the country, different depths? I mean,
They can
how's it
live.
kinda-
They can live in the same lake and live in the same areas. They're two completely different species of fish, but they also do a lot of the same things.
Do you have different tactics for each one?
You'll have to mix it up for sure. For sure.
I like that he says crappie and not crappie.
I've never heard
Sac-a-lait.
crappie much.
Sack of milk.
Well,
Well,
you-
what it was? Sac-a-lait?
Sac-a-lait,
yeah,
that's-
paper mouths.
I grew up calling them white perch.
Yeah,
White perch,
yeah.
Yeah. But there are places in the country that call them crappie. Yeah. Where is that?
Alabama for sure.
What?
Anything that direction. A good friend of mine, he calls them crappie.
Thanks, Hayden.
That was awesome.
He may be an isolated. I think I'm speaking for the majority of the state, and it's crappie. No, I wasn't expecting. I was expecting you to say New York or someplace like that.
We should write a book on the proper pronunciation of.
I think it's like the biology. It depends.
What's Dudley usually knows? I bet he doesn't on this. What's the scientific name?
Oh,
should have looked it up. Google will tell you.
We knew this.
We need that.
I'm sure Hayden knows.
I don't remember it right off the top of my tongue.
All right, Hayden. So let's talk about. I'd like to understand, like, these tournaments that you've gotten into. Is it very similar to a bass tournament, or you get a How are you guys doing those?
It's very similar, except most crappie tournaments are going to weigh 7 fish compared to 5. They give you a couple extra fish because a crappie's not going to grow to 10 pounds like a bass could. But oh goodness!
So and you've got. So I see spider rigs on some boats. Is all that wide open to you?
These days, most everybody's using live scope when it comes to tournament fishing. You'll see an occasional spider rigger trolling, but for the most part, everybody has kind of gravitated towards the newer technology.
Is anybody still using minnows?
They're still allowed in tournaments, and they're fished at almost every tournament.
Hey, there's a chance.
Yeah. So, well, you brought up live scope. That's an interesting. I mean, we need to talk about it a little bit. And I understand you're one of the best at using a live scope. Why is that? How did you? Were you a gamer and you just understand?
I've gotten that a lot. They people say, "Oh, you must have played all kind of video games as a kid," and I really didn't. Dad wouldn't buy us an Xbox. He wouldn't buy us a PlayStation. He said, "If y'all want something to do, go outside."
I didn't get an Xbox either. I got a dog.
And
box.
we ended up getting one as we were older, but never played it. By then we were in the outdoors and doing that, and so it just sat there and collected dust.
Yeah, that's good.
So, how did you learn to use these?
So, let's see. LiveScope came out in 2017, 2018, somewhere in there. That's about the same time I was graduating high school, going to college, and then 2 years later, COVID hit. And so I was already kind of starting to use LiveScope a little bit and get familiar with it. And then when COVID hit, they sent us home from school. And I was working a part-time job that we could work 20 hours a week. And so I had nothing but free time. And so I started fishing pretty much every day that the weather would let me. Getting out there, using it, trying to figure out, what I was looking at and trying to understand it. And it took a while, but finally started to come together.
So I know very little about that. So it's facing downwards?
It's a forward-facing sonar compared to, a lot of your older stuff, it was down imaging, and you were looking directly under the boat to see how deep it was. Then side imaging came out, and it got to where we could scan off both sides of the boat, 100 feet or so. And then the forward-facing sonar came around. And so it's looking off the front of the boat, scanning 75 to 100 feet.
Okay. And so you're not going to be like often jigging straight up and down. You're going to be getting it out.
Well, we'll still fish vertical, but you're using it, to locate fish, locate structure, different things.
It just makes it a lot easier to see exactly where they are.
You're fishing for a fish.
Okay.
Most of the time.
Wow.
So you can pull up to a brush top and know whether you should fish it, or you could say, there's none here. Let's go and find another one. Or here they are, guys. And you can see them.
Oh yeah, you can see
watch
an individual fish sitting. Like if it's a brush pile as big as this room and there's one fish on it, you can kind of pick it apart, and sure enough, you'll see them sitting there.
So we kind of cruise around and be like, that's not big enough there.
In a tournament, you're looking for the biggest fish.
Yeah, I can see
and
that.
So
100%.
you've got to
almost time when they're not
you've got to
there.
train yourself
Yeah.
to drive past the smaller fish.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
And then some days when you're just out there fun fishing, you try to catch every fish you see.
Yeah.
It seems like the live scope has really kind of polarized people, and some people think that y'all are going to catch all the fish out of a lake. But what are your thoughts on that?
It's a very touchy subject for a lot of people. I've been using it for a while, and I'm going to use Ross Barnett as an example because I've been watching it for, let's say, 5 years with live scope. There's more fish in that lake this year than I've ever seen it. And a lot of people have said, Well, you're looking at more water than you used to look at. But I've been looking at water for a while. I stay on the lake pretty much every day. And so I get to see, what's in it somewhat. And the lake's super healthy. Live scope will never kill a fishery. I'll say that. Overfishing will kill a fishery.
Yeah, good point. Mm-hmm.
So if the proper regulations are in place, proper
Even
slots,
self-regulation.
sure. So as long as the folks managing the resource are doing their part and collecting the data and all that, where they can set the proper.
Oh, and you got to think it's going to help them collect better data too. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not just fishermen that can use it.
And I feel that a lot of these lakes, it could actually help down the road because they're borderline overpopulated with crappie. And so a little bit more harvest is probably going to help that lake grow bigger fish.
Mm-hmm. That sure could.
I didn't think of it in terms of a better, more accurate census.
Yeah,
that's actually
for sure. I mean, it's a surveying tool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about private. You got to. I'm not knocking all our fish biologist buddies, but having to shock the lake to find out it may be a better way.
Cruise around, and look at them
For sure.
So, I mean, I can remember being a kid. My dad loved to fish for crappie, but sometimes we would go and you might not get on them. And we'd try different depths and all this kind of stuff. And as a young kid, you just loved being out there fishing, but it was so much better if you were catching fish. Right. And I could see that this would be a way. I mean, I guess that's like a no-brainer. But I can see how this would really help guys taking kids and just everybody having a better time.
For sure. I get to spend a lot of days every year with kids in the boat, and we always have a good time. Usually because we can, get them on some fish.
I can't even get an attachment to emails from time to time. I look at that big live scope when I see them on boats, and I'm thinking, how in the world does a guy figure out how to do all that?
Once you see it, though, I mean, it makes sense. It's not people overcomplicate it, I'm going to say.
It's come so far in the last 4 or 5 years, Lanny. We've been paying attention to it, but I wonder what the next 4 or 5 years. Are you hearing?
I don't know. I'm scared to see, really. I mean,
technology.
It's getting clearer, and they're getting where you can see farther, and I don't know where it goes.
All right, so let's talk about cost here. What is there like an entry level price are they all similar?
They're similar. You have 3 different brands that make them. I'm going to say entry cost into it to get a upper end good system, $4,000 to $5,000.
Okay.
Whereas you could get cheaper, get a smaller display screen, but then it's harder, to see what you're doing and whatnot.
I wonder if, in 10 years, they'll be like $3.99 at Walmart, kind of like big screen TVs.
No, it'll be like it'll Bluetooth to your phone.
Cell phone
and you
used
just clip
to
it
cost,
on the front of the boat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's pretty amazing.
Right now, it's kind of going the other way because people are wanting bigger displays and better transducers and this and that. And so it's getting expensive. The system that runs on the front of my boat's probably $10,000 or so.
Okay, but you're a professional.
I use it every day, so I can justify it.
Yeah. I mean, a country music singer doesn't have a $400.
Yeah, that's right.
The great thing to point out too, though, with all this advancing technology, probably a wider gap, but you can just still go fishing old school, take your chances, drown minnows, whatever, or you can have the best of the best technology, and just like hunting. I mean, not everybody has to have 50 trail cameras telling them everything's going on. They just take their chances, climb a tree, scout, look for sign, and you can enjoy the full gamut of out there in nature.
Yeah, there's a balance in there for sure.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about catching crappie. So I'm thinking about the spring. You show up at the Ross Barnett Reservoir. How do you decide I'm using a yellow jig today or a pink jig?
Yeah.
What goes through your mind there? Is it watercolor?
And are you using jigs?
I use jigs a lot. Mostly watercolor. And it's not really the color of the water, it's how much sediment's in the water. So like during the spring, it's going to be muddy. I mean, you think about this river right here or say Grenada, it's going to be super muddy. And it looks the same every day, but the clarity changes just a little bit depending on how that sediment is churned or whether it's settled down or whatever it is. I try to stay as natural as possible when I'm picking a jig, just because a crappie eats, something that's fairly natural most of the time. But when you start getting into the mud, you have to start playing with different colors. And after studying it, I'm going to say red shows up the best. Like if it's just super, super muddy, you can't see your bait, as soon as you drop it in there, they can see red.
That's interesting. You would think it would be something neonish, chartreusey.
Mm-hmm. And chartreuse, it actually turns white when you put it into muddy water. And so it's harder for them to see that.
So what would be, if you had to just one color to fish all the time, what would it be?
My go-to jig would be silver for sure. But it depends, different times of the year. And back to that black crappie, white crappie thing. A black crappie is going to eat a smaller bait than a white crappie typically is. And so if you're fishing in an area that, is predominantly black crappie, you're looking a little smaller and probably a little more bug-like almost. Maybe some browns and greens and different things like that coming into play.
What about like insect stuff? Like right now, I guess this time of year, the willow flies hatch. And I've seen them be such a massive hatch when I grew up on the Tom Bigby. And that's when we would catch a lot. You could actually put a light out and get a whole bunch of them and put them on a brim hook. And it means as soon as you drop it in the water, you catch, brim or a lot of crappie would bite it.
Yeah, we've had a lot of mayflies this year down there. And I didn't know what was going on because every crappie we were catching, their mouths were red and bleeding.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know what it was, and I kind of asked around, and they were eating larvae off of wood. So the crappie's actually swimming up and eating those larvae off of the stumps.
How about that?
And so it was beating their mouths up almost, making them bleed.
Wow. Interesting. I've never even thought about that.
Yeah. I would have thought
like bank feeding. Yeah.
So my one big fish story I tell about my fishing buddy was my Uncle Bud, which everybody here knew, Peggy's dad. And so the Tom Bigby in the summer has just a very slow current, just very slow, but it does have a small current. And the hatch was so ridiculous. You could just see them everywhere. They were on your clothes and everywhere. So he had an old screen door and he hung it with some rope to where it stuck down in the water right on the bank. And so it was, kind of like you would stop the flow a little bit with it. It was a screen door. And then he ran a light down there. And there was a light hanging over it all night. And the next morning woke up, there was this huge drift of mayflies, willow flies. Like it was backed up the river a little piece from there. And we literally, until we got tired of catching stuff, we'd catch. I was catching them on a fly rod, but you put a couple of them on there, and just as soon as they got below that drift, boom. I mean, I haven't even caught a big bass doing it.
So
but the crappie were so packed under that thing.
Was he creating an eddy? Is that what you're saying?
No, it was the bait. It was like a bait pile.
Oh, okay. So it would collect in the front of the screen.
They were coming to the light and falling in the water, and they just. I mean, it was probably a couple inches deep of them right at the screen door. And then backed up the creek. And then there's fish from every catfish, crappie, bass, everything in the river was feeding on them. Pretty neat. I still remember like it was yesterday.
That's really neat. But for the most part, crappie are more of a fish-eating species, right?
They're going to feed on shad 95% of the time.
Yep.
Okay. I know, bluegills and things like that, you're getting closer to more insect-type lures, whereas with crappie, you're normally imitating.
And here's something that a lot of people may not know. So a male crappie, he'll sit on a nest when they first hatch, and he'll raise those baby crappie just big enough to where they're food, and he starts eating them.
Wow.
They're cleaning fish right now that have crappie inside of them. This year's hatch, they're about 1 inch to 2 inches long, and those crappie are just gorging on them.
So you better get on out the house quick as you can.
The way crappie can populate is probably a good thing.
Right, for sure. For sure.
That's interesting.
That is true.
So they used all that energy to keep them safe and protected, and then they're like, well, I need some of that energy back. Thanks.
Started eating them.
So now that we're moving into the hotter part of summer, I'm looking at the weather. We're going to be in the 90s next week for sure.
Unfortunately.
What are crappie doing now?
On Barnett, the lake I fish primarily, our fish are coming back out. So, March and April, those fish are pushing in shallow to spawn. They're getting that out of the way, and then they kind of come back and just set up. They don't come too far out. They'll set up shallow, and they'll hang out there until we start getting this 90-degree weather. And when we start getting that shallower water is going to start running out of oxygen, and so those fish are having to pull back deeper. And so I'm kind of fishing the first drop of the lake right now, kind of 8 to 12 foot of water. Really keying on structure right now. It seems like as the water gets hotter and hotter, the fish want to sit on something. To where it's like during the winter, you go out there and they're just roaming around. During the summer, I'm really keying on structure a lot. and we cast a lot. So the fish will group up on structure, and it may be 100 fish there. And so instead of pulling up and, jig fishing them, we'll sit back off of them and actually throw to them 30 or 40 feet. Try to catch more of them.
Is that a normal size school, 100 fish, or do you see bigger? Or
I've seen groups of crappie upwards of probably 1,000 fish before.
Wow.
And would they stay there a couple of days so you could fish them today and go back tomorrow?
Yeah. I've got some piles that will hold 300 to 400 fish all summer. I mean, they'll be there.
Mm-hmm. Do you go out and put structure out?
I've put a lot of stuff out over the years. I need to do more of it, but you also have to have permits and a lot of other different things to do it. And so,
do you have a go-to? I mean, the cedar tree.
Cedar's probably the
Christmas
best.
trees.
Yeah, Christmas trees.
Cedar.
What's the best way to do that?
Get enough weight to hold it down, which can be tough sometimes.
Yeah.
Cinder blocks. I bet are good.
Yeah, there's a lot of little groups that do that at boat ramps sometimes. Boy Scouts. If my memory serves me, you were a Boy Scout.
I was a Boy Scout.
Did y'all do any kind of programs like that?
I don't remember doing specific fish structure programs, but I mean, I was always chunking everybody's old Christmas trees in any lake I could growing up. So
yeah,
y'all just gave me an idea for even in ponds some fish structure doing that. I just had never thought of before because cedars I just thought of just you cut them and drag them out there far enough, just laying right off the bank or something. But you could take cinder blocks and some rope, drill a hole in it, and put a couple of them together and
make them sort
shove
of
it off.
up.
And I'm sure if you drilled a hole in the butt or base of a cedar and had it anchored, it would stick straight up, probably, wouldn't it?
So a lot of people would take a milk jug or something and tie it to the top of them.
So
it'll hold it up.
Right? Yeah, that'd be really cool structure.
FAD.
Let us know where you do that, Doug.
Device.
I'll send you a pin on everything, Bobby. Count on it. In fact, it may be a long way to get to where I send you pins to, but if you'll get
it'll be worth it.
Yeah, I wouldn't steer you
It'd be
wrong.
worth it for us.
In the last couple of years, they've started doing some habitat days on the core lakes up here in North Mississippi, and so they're putting out 500 tops probably.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Just a big collective group of anglers and different people showing up and helping keep
Playing their
those
part.
lakes what they are.
Fishing community. Love it.
We have
Gamekeeping,
that
doesn't it?
National Day of Conservation for moss ear properties every year. That'd be a great project for some people to do. I hope some of them are listening, or for us to do.
Yeah. So we talk spring, and they're shallow, they're spawning, and you're saying the latter part of the spring they start easing out of the shallows. Summer they're going a little bit deeper. What about fall?
So our lake in the fall runs out of oxygen most years because it's quit raining. There's no inflow of water coming in, and there's so many fish living in it, they start using up all the oxygen. And so the fish have to go. They have two options. They can push upwards towards the river where they may get some inflow to find oxygen, or they can sink down deeper into the channels to find oxygen there. And so 2 falls ago, we had a really bad drought. I mean, it got super dry. I was catching crappie 30 to 35 foot deep.
Wow.
That was just the only thing left in the lake that had oxygen for those fish to live in.
And was there a structure down there, or are they just
Not
chilling?
really. Not really. Just kind of hanging out.
Survival mode.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And then
No wonder nobody could find them until we started getting more advanced technology. A huge lake like that,
Yeah.
and then them holding it.
Yeah, it makes me wonder what happens in a private pond, And I know that's a whole nother topic, and I know, generally speaking, you shouldn't put them in a smaller pond. They'll get so overpopulated. Not saying you can't, but I wonder what happens, though, in that situation, because I worry about that kind of stuff. I do have one of our ponds I built that is pretty much an oxbow, that, to be natural, and it has crappie, a pretty vibrant population and all. And it's not super deep. It's got some depth, but it's not like that. I wonder, do you run a risk, because I know lakes turn over.
Yeah, I feel like you would definitely be at risk of turnover.
Yep.
Just depending on how many fish you were housing in that lake.
So at some point in that fall, when you start getting the rains, does the oxygenates? And
you need a good wash. I mean, it's got to be a pretty good rain, but you get that first wash and it picks all those fish back up. And so then all winter, those fish, they don't have to go back down. They've got oxygen throughout the column. As it starts to get colder, the fish will start slowing down a little bit, but they're still catchable. They won't really lock up until the water gets 35 degrees or so.
No, man.
And if it gets down that low, they'll shut off.
to where they're just not going to eat.
It's a dormant fish at that point.
And it's got to be cold for the water to be 35 degrees in Jackson, too.
We get it from time to time.
Yeah.
I've been out there some days where you never make a crappie move.
Yeah.
Like he won't do anything.
So you fishing when it's cold.
We fish all year.
Yeah.
So when you're tournament angling, so you might go to, say, Iowa or South Carolina to a tournament. Do you take the same? How long does it take you to kind of figure out the water there?
Typically, if I'm going to travel, farther distance, I'm going to give myself 3 to 4 days to try to get an idea. I'm going into it, fishing it how I know, crappie act, but then you get into different regions of the country and you start getting thrown some curveballs. Just fish live in different areas, I guess, from what you're used to. You get like, let's say Lake Cumberland. I went up there a couple years ago in Kentucky. And Ross Barnett, the deepest spot's 42 feet. Well, I get up there and it's 200 foot of water.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so you're just, in shock trying to figure out where these crappie are even wanting to be. That kind of stuff definitely takes some time to break down and figure it out.
You probably ain't got a cane pole that'll reach that deep, do you?
Doesn't run out of line, man.
It's not too different from, going to a new area that you've never hunted before, especially out of state, can throw you for a loop.
What are some of the better crappie lakes around the country?
Grenada, everybody's heard it. Everybody knows it. It produces big fish every year. But I really enjoy Texas. Texas has got a lot of water over there, and they've got some really good fisheries. Lake Fork would be one that I could name. There's a couple others over there that are good. Let's see.
What's that lake? Is it Lake Weiss that's between
Lake
Alabama
Weiss
and Georgia?
Alabama, it's good. There's good crappie water all the way around the country. I'm lining a trip up right now to go to California next January, and there's supposed to be some big fish out there.
Our friends up in Minnesota, they catch a lot of crappie. Yeah. It really is.
I've been watching Minnesota for a couple of years now, and they're definitely catching some.
What's the world record black and white crappie right now?
The world record white came out of Enid, or the world record came out of Enid below the spillway in the 50s or 60s, I think it was. And it was 5 pounds, 8 ounces.
That's a big crappie.
Yeah, there was recently a fish caught in Tennessee that
I saw that.
5 pounds, 7 ounce.
Ooh.
And it came out of a pond, actually.
Wow. Well, I know I wonder if that would even count, though.
It should.
Well, but they're stocking
categories.
What they'll do, the biologists will do, if you have a smaller pond, they'll stock like they're sterile. In other words, they can't reproduce. And so that way your population doesn't get carried away. And if you want to keep catching them, but they'll get huge. It's kind of like the all-female bass thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so that seems like that wouldn't be fair to compete with catching one on public water. To me, it wouldn't. So who knows?
I don't know. There's so many variables in all this and whatnot.
But I mean, it's just like putting one in a tank and feeding it a supplemental feed to,
It's like the slab lab.
I'd be scared to hold a crappie by its mouth.
If it weighed that much.
Weighing that much, I'm scared it would just fall,
If it weighed that much, I would be worried about my world record. My world record fillet might be what I'm worried about. So I would hold him over the boat in case he fell out.
They do have such tender mouths, don't they?
They do at certain times of the year. And then at different times of the year, their mouths will actually harden up a little bit.
Okay.
And so it won't be near soft.
When are they the tenderest?
Probably during the summer, post-spawn into the summer. They're pretty tender. That water starts cooling off and getting cold, and they harden up a little bit.
How about that?
Yeah.
Paper mouths.
I've lost them many. When I was little, I can remember my dad just, you're hoisting him slow. It'd be easy, gentle, and he'd get off. And I told you, and I can remember a lot of that.
Oh, yeah. I got schooled on that a few times.
That's where you came up. That's where all these psychological issues came from.
Right.
Probably
Now I
did.
understand it from your
roots are
childhood.
there. That's right.
So I was
Traumatic.
Crappie.
You use a net?
I use a net a lot, but if I'm by myself, no. I never fish with a net.
So Lanny,
What?
if he's a tournament angler, he's living off of his proceeds. He is really living off his net income.
Oh, look at you, Mr. Business Major.
Oh, here we go again.
Oh my gosh.
It never stops.
It's exhausting.
That was good.
So Hayden, when I Google your name and I read about you, there's a lot of tournaments that really don't want you to show up.
That's something I've fought since I started tournament fishing.
What?
They don't. What's going on? Are
you catching that many
I honestly
fish?
don't even like to talk about stuff like that. It's just sad.
There was almost fight in a boat ramp parking lot one morning because I showed up. It was a state championship, and I was eligible to fish. I had won a couple tournaments with the trail, and I had qualified, went through the procedures to do it. And there were some anglers that didn't know that I was coming to fish, and it was pretty ugly. I got my boat in the water as quick as I could and kind of got out of there.
Golly.
It wasn't looking good.
I get that a lot.
No, whatever.
During turkey season. So, we're having, we've got this archery tournament here that we
go again.
That I won last year, and now they're already trying to change the rules on me.
I've dealt with all of that. I know how you feel.
Lanny, didn't you get like a close second? And I think you set your bow up like that morning, maybe?
Yeah, no, I should have won the tournament. There's no question about it. But I flopped there at the end. But I hadn't practiced at all. I didn't practice at all. But I did set my bow up that morning. Anyways.
Well, you can't. You just can't.
Yeah,
you can't. When you read about you, there's that going on. And from what
I mean, you got folks shaking in their boots out there when you show up at the boat ramp.
There's a lot of drama in competitive fishing.
There is a lot of drama.
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah, it is sad.
Yep.
Huh.
So you've just worked hard and become a really good crappie fisherman in a short amount of time, really. Because you're a relatively young guy.
I spent a lot of time on the water in the last 4 or 5, 6 years.
I got to say, I want to show up with a guy at the boat ramp that everybody's scared of fishing against. I mean, I'm going to tell you that.
Yeah.
Well, next time I come home to visit my parents, I kind of want to book a trip.
Yeah.
How far do you stay booked out?
I try not to stay too far out to where I can still, put trips that I want to take in there and whatnot. Usually 2 to 3 months.
And how many customers do you usually have in the boat, or what's
up to 3?
Up to 3.
Yeah.
Okay, clients, customers.
After
that's one thing I do like. I don't like I can't stand the issues like you just talked about. Yeah, anything.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I have noticed. I mean, I remember like people that I was around, that avid fishermen, crappie fishermen especially, and it seems like it emerged maybe 10 or 15 years ago, but it's pretty vibrant now, the trophy crappie guided fishing trip.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And I guarantee you that didn't exist 20 years ago.
Right.
I mean, maybe there was one. Now there's quite a bit of it. And because the fishermen like him are so good, and because certain fisheries, I think I bet you the top spot for that's probably Grenada.
It is.
Because I've just all the time running into people. Yeah, I took my kids. I bought them a 2-day guided fishing tour. Man, we wore them out. Mm-hmm. Oh, I mean, we caught one at 2 3/4 of 3. Yeah. And I think it's so cool that crappie is to that level with people. I really think that's cool.
Yeah.
I spent all spring on Grenada this year, just looking for big fish. We didn't keep fish, but maybe 1 or 2 days in a month period. Just chasing trophies.
So is that the best time of year to try to catch?
If you're looking to catch a fish that we would hang on the wall in here, it would be February, March most of the time.
Okay.
And why is it that way?
They're getting ready to spawn, and they're at their heaviest weight.
They weigh the most. Gotcha.
They're full of eggs.
Sense.
Yeah. Well, when you read, Mississippi is a heck of a crappie state.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
They've done a great job. And so, we kind of started off talking about this as a tool, but as long as harvest rates are monitored, and we all know that crappie can overpopulate a pond, and
Right.
assume the same thing could happen with a lake if people aren't taking enough out.
Yeah.
If the biologists within that are working that waterway will manage what's being harvested, these guys can work together and make it better.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah, and the thought of the advancing technology making us make better management decisions for the resource, is exciting.
Sure. And I'm picturing biologists. I mean, I would think that someone like you could even show them how to use these live scope to inventory the lake, so to speak.
I've asked biologists several times if they're using it. Are you using live scope? And the answer's always been no. Why they're not, I'm not sure. Because it's a great surveying tool.
Yeah.
They probably will at some point.
I would think so.
They move a little slower than the old private.
There is, I'm sure, a big benefit to doing a census like with the shocking boat and all. then you lay your hands on them or
Right.
inspecting, the health of them in some ways and stuff too. So I get that.
The fishermen out there have ability to report, better information than it has in the past.
Well, I mean, think the other thing on a really deep lake like that, it's going to be really hard to shock up.
Yeah, that's right.
A sample size representative of what's going on there, because
With the crappie, they only come shallow for maybe a 3-week period
Right.
there.
Yeah.
And so you would have to hit it right then.
Is there a certain water temperature that you're monitoring, trying to, boy, if it gets to 69, I got to go? Or what triggers that spawn? Is the moon
It's the
play a role?
length of day mostly.
Photo period, just like everything.
Just like turkeys.
Interesting, yeah. And deer.
So it's not a water temperature thing.
Not always. Now, water temperature can definitely speed it up a little bit or slow it down. The moon phases can definitely, maybe make it happen a week earlier because the full moon hit. But at Ross Barnett, it's April 15th. That's the peak of the spawn every year.
Wow. So is there
And that's also the peak of another.
Yeah, that's
Time of
peak
year.
goblin
pretty
time.
close? I always said the first week of April. Isn't there like the hatches from year to year are not real consistent?
They're not
and you'll have a bad year too, and then boom, you'll have a big one. Isn't that kind of how they go?
And that depends on the lake. Like the Grenada and these lakes up here, the water fluctuates so much level wise. And so it could be time for those fish to spawn. They all run into spawn, and then you get a big rain, and the lake comes up 5 feet.
Right.
Well, so every one of those nests got washed away. And so you have a bad spawn that year.
Huh.
A lake like Barnett, it stays a constant level. Those fish kind of get to do what they want to do. And there's, it shows because there's a lot of fish in there.
So some of those big watershed lakes that you've been fishing, is there? We used to always complain about when they would let the water in or out during duck season, and we were like, they need to be managing this better for us, But is there anything like that has to do with fishing that?
It's kind of the same way with the water levels, but I mean, those weren't built for recreation.
Yeah,
It's for flood control.
and so you just are whatever card you're dealt, you're willing to adapt
You
to
have
that.
fish the conditions.
Have you ever experimented with the wade fishing that folks are doing?
I do it some during the spring. It can be a lot of fun. Being right there eye to eye with them almost, a 10-foot jig rod in the woods.
Yeah.
And you catching him right here.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun.
Almost like duck hunting a timber hole or
Exactly
something.
what I was thinking.
And it's the meanest crappie that you'll put your bait in front of too that time of year. So he usually tries to take the pole out of your hand.
That does sound like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So you ever go along with that live scope and you see a couple of look like big largemouth laying up against a log? Do you ever tell your clients, hang on one second here, let me drop over?
I play with the bass a little bit. Not a lot, but I do a little bit. Fish a few tournaments during the summer. Just kind of my slow time of year, so I'll jump in some tournaments here and there and fish them.
So how many tournaments do you fish in a year?
At one time, I was fishing 30-ish.
Wow.
Now I'm down to probably less than 10.
Yeah. That's a lot of fishing tournaments.
So if you're help me understand what you think would be an ideal boat for a guy who's just maybe like Lanny or Dudley or myself. Just a couple of
yourself,
couple of
right?
couple of people in the boat. Would it be a 14 or 15 inch foot?
Hope it's bigger now.
That's
Yeah.
pretty small,
14
Bobby.
Yeah, 14. What's a
I'm
rig?
gonna say the ideal crappie boat just to start would be probably an 18-foot aluminum boat somewhere in there. That's what I started in. I fished out of 2 or 3 of them before I got my first fiberglass boat. And it's a good starting point because it's a big enough boat that you can get on big water, but you still kind of have to watch your weather to make sure it's not going to be super rough out there. But
Yeah.
I would say that would be.
That's a pretty big.
Yeah, 18. Pretty big.
Yeah, what size motor?
I think most of them have a 115 or 150 something.
That sounds like that's a lot bigger than I was expecting you to say. I thought you'd say like a 15-foot
And you
with a
get
25.
You get out on that.
Ross
on
Barnett
that
is
big water,
huge.
white
Yeah.
capping and a
He's not-
storm.
He's not out here in the waterway.
That's right. You're not running a river or
Yeah,
something.
something
or
like
runs
this.
north and
you
south.
could get away with something smaller, but I mean, you take Grenada, it's 40-something thousand
Yeah.
acres. You take Barnett, it's 33,000.
That's
Well, it
a
looks
lot
like,
of place
I mean, it
for the
looks like
wind to pick
Mobile
up.
Bay when you get to
Yeah.
those things. They're huge.
I've heard horror stories of my buddies up there,
Yep.
just having to watch the wind or going up there to fish and can't fish because of the wind.
They sink a lot of boats on
Yeah,
Grenada
yeah.
every year.
Yeah, Big Dave had a good story
Sure
from
did.
this spring.
Yeah, sure did. Big Dave's a big crappie fisher.
It can get scary out there quick.
After his nursery responsibilities.
I'm fishing out of a basically 23-foot fiberglass boat with a 300 on it.
That's a big one.
Woo!
But fishing big water, and I try to fish every day, no matter what the weather's doing. I need a big boat that I can get out there in.
Saltwater bug ever hit you?
I've had one person get seasick.
Oh, really?
In 3.5 years.
I mean, do you like to saltwater fish?
Oh yeah,
You do?
yeah. I thought you meant like seasick bug in the rough water.
No.
23 feet. Woo, that's a big
But
boat.
I try to saltwater fish every time I get a chance.
Sweet.
It's a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah.
What else?
Not a lot more complex too.
What do we need to
The
be asking?
ways of the bay.
Yep.
But I mean, what'd you do, Mitchell?
So, have you seen, like, in your tenure as a crappie fisherman, have you seen the popularity of it just almost explode?
It's exploded within the last 5 years, I would say.
Okay.
For sure.
Do you think there will come a time where there's going to be so many people crappie fishing that it could potentially affect the resource? I mean, let's face it, everybody likes to eat crappie and catch a limit.
For sure.
Do you think there's a chance the limit may ever dwindle down to like 2 or 3 fish, and then it's bad? Then you're just catching to release, you know?
I wouldn't think so, because crappie are so prolific in their spawning activities. I mean, a female fish can hold 20 to 50,000 eggs.
Ugh.
And so let's say 10% of those make, that's still 2 to 5,000
Yeah.
fish.
I mean, you said yourself earlier that, it almost seems like it's gotten better.
I've been watching, a lot of the lakes in the state of Mississippi over the last 5 years, just kind of monitoring it. And most of them are still, doing good. The Delta lakes over there, the flood several years ago, it kind of churned all that up and mixed it up. So those, you can't really use as a sample. But they're coming back. Those fish they're growing, and it's looking good over there.
Well, we've always talked about how prolific crappie are in private ponds. I mean,
That's why you
small
got to
pond,
be careful.
You got to be
Yeah,
careful with
yeah.
them. Yeah.
You have to catch a lot of fish to keep it in balance. I noticed when they wanted to put the lake I talked about, it was long and skinny. It was really pretty. I love the place. Bobby's been there. But they were wanting to put stripers in there to keep them in check more.
Keep the crappie in check.
That's right.
I may have been there.
Weren't able to.
Yeah, I think you did.
I think
go
I
there.
fished it. Maybe.
Yeah.
When did you go?
Somebody took him.
Oh, okay.
John?
John took
Maybe.
him.
Was it a Fish Wars episode or something?
Who knows?
It could be a different lake.
Yeah, you talking
It
about
sounds a lot
Alabama,
like a
aren't you?
lake I fished.
There's no boat ramp. You just have to kind of back in and
Maybe not.
Yeah, there's no boat ramp.
We'll confirm that.
Yeah, later.
Yeah.
I've been promising to take him there. We have a buddy in common that's
Yeah,
asked me
that's
to
what
go.
I'm thinking about, I guess.
But I never turned him loose. He's
It
welcome
must be a
to.
different lake.
Yep. It's just off limits in the
Spring.
best time. Yeah, it's,
You won't
it's
be in
off-
there April 15th.
No, not to live to tell about it.
Maybe February.
Fall, yeah.
February.
February's kind of
January, February, I wouldn't really care that much, But March and April,
Off limits.
Yep.
But no, in the smaller lakes, they've got some hybrid fish out now that, like you said a minute earlier, they're not supposed to be able to spawn. And so they've mixed a white crappie and a black crappie and done some different things, and it's a non-reproductive fish. The biggest fish I've ever caught was a state stock. They named them the Magnolia crappie. That's kind of where that came from. It was created in a lab in Enid, Mississippi, and they started stocking their state lakes with this fish. And so they quit stocking those fish in 2014, and I caught this fish in 2022. So that fish was 8 years old, and it was $3.94, 19 and a half inches, just a huge fish. And there was several of them in there. I looked it up that same day, and the state record for the Magnolia was like 360 or something like that.
So
and
you
so I
beat
was
it.
holding a state record fish, questioning whether or not I wanted to call the department because I knew I had to say the lake name, if I turned it in. And so I chose not to turn it in, just to, try to save the lake. It was so small, if 5 boats got on there, it would have been overfished.
Yeah.
And ended up catching like 13 or 14 3-pound fish out of that lake in
Yeah,
a couple
wow.
years span.
Well, a lot of people, that kill a big deer just won't enter in the books because they don't want,
It took me 2 years to want to post the fish on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody would analyze the trees
Yeah.
in the background.
Oh,
or
that's
pick something out of the
flattening.
shoreline.
I do that to Bobby all the time. When we see the picture, he's like, no. Zoom in.
flattening.
You're not looking at the fish. No, I'm looking at what's behind you.
People.
Well, I mean, you have to ask yourself, who am I doing this for?
Right.
You know, and it makes sense. You don't want to have 20 people show up there the next weekend.
Well, you got to keep the resources a priority.
I mean, you want to
That's what it
share,
comes down
but
to.
I mean, I guess you just have to decide where to draw the line on that, and every person is different.
Toxie, you got another question?
I was just in general, like as opposed to jigging with a long, casting. Like you said, sometimes you'll find a school and you'll get 30 feet away so you don't disturb them and cast. What's a couple of your top lures and colors for casting?
I throw Bobby Garland makes an itty bit, and it's 1.25 inch bait, and it has a little tail on the back of it that never stops swimming the whole time you're reeling it. And I love casting that bait. I mean, it does really good. Depending on what I'm doing, I may cast 2 jigs if it's a big group of fish, or I may just cast one that's a little bit heavier if I'm throwing it single fish.
So when you're throwing a jig, how do you play it? As you reel it in, how do you?
You're watching your water clarity and seeing how far those fish can see. And so like Lake Cumberland, like I mentioned earlier, those fish could see 10 feet.
Wow.
And so I'm keeping it way up above them and watching, pulling fish way up out of the group. And then as it gets dirtier, you're having to get closer and closer to that fish for him to be able to recognize, hey, there's something to eat.
So do you cast when they're deep? I mean,
you can. I mean, you can get a little heavier with your jigs and get them down there to them.
Yeah.
So I think Toxie's asking, because he's not using a live scope, I promise you. He's asking, when he throws that jig out there, does he just slowly reel it in, or does he twitch it, or is there any play there?
And that's something that's weird. Used to crappie fishing, you jig, 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 jig. I mean, you're moving your bait, bumping your bait, and then you get a live scope and you see a fish react to that, and he freaks out and he runs off, and you're like, wait, hold on a second. That's what we've done forever. And so it's more steady, slow, just a natural
Not up and down, up and down, up and down.
But it's weird. So I have a pier at a lake house, and every time I walk down there to crappie fish it, I'm jigging my jig around, and that's like the only way I can get bit. But you turn the live scope on, and it's slow and steady. Just take it away from him. I don't know. It's pretty weird.
Interesting.
That's interesting that you can see their reaction and adapt your technique.
You can definitely read the fish
based on that. And I bet it's really fun to watch one come up from 10 feet and take your bait.
Yeah. I was sitting way back off of those fish, probably 40, 50 feet, and throwing a little bitty light jig and just letting it barely fall. And he would see it. And when he saw it, you could stop. I mean, you could start reeling, and he would come. He might follow it 30 feet before he made it to the bait to eat it.
Is smaller
all about visibility then?
Sounds like smaller's better.
For me, I fish small a lot of times until you get into really muddy water, and then you have to start getting bigger, just to where they can locate, that there is something there to eat.
You casting with just a light spinning rod?
7 foot light.
What test you usually use?
Yeah.
It depends on the water clarity, 2 to 6,
Okay.
depending on.
Oh, but that's fun. You
2
gotta-
pound. 2 pound gets interesting.
Yeah, with a 3-pound fish. Wow. That does sound fun.
I've caught a 3 pound fish on 2 pound line. You just really have to play the drag and let that fish basically own you for a minute.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's a guy, Toxie, Sarah Parvin is trying to grow these big brims. There's a
She
guy.
does grow big brim.
There's a guy, I
Incredible.
won't say his name. I've been begging him to come on our podcast and talk because he's trying to do the same thing with crappie in a pond. But he won't. Hopefully, I'll get him over the edge here one of these
Has he
days.
branded his lake like the slab lab?
Not
Is it
yet.
like
I don't think. But he's a really interesting guy.
Super sac-a-lait
I think Toxie makes him nervous.
That's so ridiculous.
I'm trying to figure out what angle you're
I'm
working
not
here,
figuring
Bob.
out what he's doing either.
I've got one more question too. Like in today's weather, I thought about it today. So, and maybe the answer is different depending on the size body of water it is. But I'm thinking about, you might could just answer this for bass fishermen. And I fish, some private pond stuff and all. But when you're fishing and then it rains real hard, and then it stops, you get back out on the water. Is there anything to where water's pouring into the lake? I'm not saying your water level went up yet, but you're in right after rain and you got stuff draining.
Flow.
Can you catch fish there? Will they aggregate around that some?
I would say so.
Just curious.
A lot of times
That's
we're
not
out in the
catfish.
middle of the lake more so we don't get to see that. But
Right.
You always hear about like rising, not tide, but rising.
Yeah, where the river rising.
Do you generally have a better day when the water is coming up fast or slow, or coming down fast or slow?
Crappie don't like change.
Okay.
They really don't. They want it to be stable. And so if you get a crazy, rise in water, it may take them a couple days to kind of get back right. And if there's moving water, those fish are looking for slack water. They're going to find an eddy or a break or something to get in. They're not going to sit in the current for very long, at least.
And they like pretty days too, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
They do. But you can catch them. I mean, you can catch them in the nasty, rainy conditions.
It's interesting that how you gravitated to crappie because, there's this fishing is so much fun and there's so many fish to target, but it's not a lot of people that just say, okay, like crappie is my thing. I'm kind of interested in how you pick that.
I'm not really sure.
I
fell in love with the crappie.
We're all programmed, as a child in different ways going through. And if he grew up in Brandon, Mississippi, he was not only his family, but he was surrounded by the noise, the papers, the talk. It's such a big sport, sure. Such a big following where he grew up. I feel like he just kind of got programmed on top of, then he got great access from his family.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you do this for a living, and there's a lot of good fishermen and fisherwomen out there. What's the difference between just doing this every day or whatever for fun and then taking people out every day? I know there's folks that would like to do what you do.
Right.
But what are the things that, maybe once you start doing it for a living, you figure out, maybe this isn't something I want to do, or what are some of your challenges?
I'm going to say you really have to love it. You have to live with the fish, basically. People get burned out regularly in it, just from the day in, day out grind. And I get asked probably twice a week. They're like, you've got to be tired of it. And I'm like, no way. Every fish is as fun as the first one. And I've just chased it for
that's
cool.
That's what's driving you right there.
Well, so obviously you must be pretty good around people because
we have a lot of fun on the boat. We like to cut up and laugh, and we try to make it less about a limit of fish, and we want to make it more about, hey, let's have a good time. Let's have a enjoyable day on the water today. And if we catch 10, oh well, it was a tough bite.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of guides, fishing guides, talk about people that they really don't even know open up to them, and you talk about things on a boat that you wouldn't necessarily talk about anywhere else.
Interesting conversation that happens. You just never know. Like you said, you get all walks of life, and it's a lot of fun. I've met some great people, made some lifelong friends from fishing.
Dudley asked you earlier, have you ever? You said you took a guy back to the ramp. What happened? We're not going to say his name.
No, Bobby, don't pull it up. Yeah. God, mark that time code.
Let's just say we had a difference in opinion with some things, and it didn't work.
That's probably smart.
Yep.
Yeah. And here we're getting a little personal here, but folks need to know these kinds of things. If you take somebody out on a boat and they have a good time, they liked you, all that good stuff, what is a fair way of tipping a guide or an outfitter? What's common?
I don't know. It changes. You get so many days that you get nothing, and then you might get a day that's great. If I clean fish, I feel like it should happen more so because I'm doing that. Just I don't know.
So there's no standard like a 10% of the total.
My rate is my rate with no tip on it. I've had a good day.
Okay. Okay.
Anything extra is extra.
Okay, that's great.
That is a good question because you always feel like you.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to ask. Don't be hesitant to ask how that works.
I go on some trips
when you go.
You get ready to tip, and I'm like, I don't really know, what I'm doing here, but
yeah,
I guess based on your experience.
I tell you, the whole tipping thing right now for everything is kind of confusing to me. Because I'll go pick up a pizza at Domino's,
and they want you,
and it asked me about tipping, and they're standing right there looking at you, and
here. Didn't I drive up here and pick this up myself? I even ordered it myself online.
Go get a Coca-Cola at a basketball game, and they show you the card machine, and it includes it, and they're asking for a tip.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hashtag awkward.
Yeah. What do you do there?
I don't know.
I just depends on what kind of mood I'm in.
I know what Blaney does. He hits the no tip.
Whatever. I take care of this.
You talk about squeezing the penny till Lincoln hollers.
If you get good service, I think you should tip.
For sure.
You know, the people that just expect to get tipped or tip, you know, I'm like, oh, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I just also, if you've been fortunate in life and you're sitting there, think past that being tight, and it's like, this person's really working hard. They're being nice and sweet.
Look,
and they need the money probably more than you do. Just give them extra, you know?
Well, my sister,
if you go up more than is expected, you kind of gifted them something beyond the money, you know, making them feel special.
Right.
Well, my sister was a server for many years, so I know good respect for her. And a bunch of friends have too, so.
Yeah. All right, look, we got a trivia question just for you that we picked out. Mitchell, who's kind of new in our podcast world. He's been here a few months, but he's
making his mark on
He came up with this trivia question. So let's turn it over.
Well, the winner of the trivia question is Wood Duck 1414.
Ah. 1414.
Let me tell you what he's won. Toxie, look here. We've got a little deal with Bones. They're gonna, for the next 6 weeks, our trivia winners are gonna win a pair of these.
Those are definitely not out of my closet because I haven't had a pair of those.
Yeah. So these are bottomland, like little. How would you describe these, Dudley? Little
house
loafers.
shoes.
Look, they're awesome. I was
Got an outdoor sole on it.
Somehow my daughter ended up with a pair of those. And she wears them around the house everywhere.
Gotta have to hold the bottom of them up.
Yeah, that sole is legit.
Very.
Especially around here.
Those
really nice
are legit.
Camp slippers, house slippers, so to speak.
Yep.
You could wear it.
What size are those?
Yeah. Did you get any 13s? That's the main thing.
12 will do.
We'll see about that. So, but they're the Bones. I think you can go to bones.com probably. BONZ.
BONZ.
And they're all in bottomland. They've got flip flops.
They look so comfortable.
They are. They are. I tried.
You have a pair.
My daughter got me a pair for Christmas.
Oh, I'm sure. That's good out.
Yep. Okay, let's. So Bones, thank you, and we'll be guys. If y'all leave a review, you got a chance to win some of these shoes. So.
Yeah. All right, here we go with
manly
the question.
footwear.
So the trivia question is, which Crappie species has fewer dorsal spikes?
Wait a minute. Let's
He
stop.
said it. He's from Alabama too.
What did you just say?
I'm from Alabama, Bobby.
Yeah.
I am too.
Come on, Bobby.
I grew up saying that.
Yeah. Leave him alone.
Unfortunately, Bobby, you look like he's right.
He's really young, but he fishes a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably more than you do, believe it or not.
Probably does.
That's so trauma. What's so much drama queen, Bobby?
Go ahead.
Which crappie species has fewer dorsal spikes?
Ooh.
So a white crappie has 5 to 6, and a black crappie has 7 to 8.
That's right.
He nailed it.
Hey,
Well, there was a big hesitation. He almost got millionth of a second. He hesitated.
Bobby, I bet you say pecan.
Did he say pecan?
No,
Pecan.
please
Pecan.
not.
Yeah.
Pecan.
Pecan. Caramel? Caramel?
I don't know on that one. I get twisted around on that
Yeah,
one.
that's true.
Well, so you know your stuff.
I study fish for sure.
Yeah, you can tell that. Yeah.
Every now and then it's weird because you'll catch one that, let's say it has 5 dorsal spines, but it has black specks down the side of it. And so somewhere down the line, that fish got crossed, and it's some of that hybridization.
Wow.
Interesting.
Dudley loves those
We're
hybrids.
so
He's
interested
a
in
hybrid.
hybrids.
Me too.
Anything that's unique,
Yeah,
you know,
of course.
we're going to be interested in.
I think we should do a.
Speaking of, I'm cutting Bobby off. I think we're going to have an excellent acorn mast crop.
Well, I tell you, if it
This
has to do
fall.
with rain in the spring,
And so
Right now,
I'm praying that we're going to have a
Good
huge
crop.
selection of hybrid and, our favorite regular oaks
Ooh, that's
as well
awesome.
next year.
Yeah.
So
on that
Cross your
one.
fingers.
Yeah.
I'm such
Knock
a
on
fan.
wood.
Yep. You know, some of the ones, it's not enough to be really prolific, but some of the ones we planted over the years are starting to produce, which is really exciting.
Yeah, it is neat.
very much so.
And right now, y'all brought up nurseries. We've got a lot of inventory available. Most of it is available for pre-sale right now. So if you order now, it'll ship in mid to late September. But you do need to go ahead and get your order in because we do have limited inventory on everything.
That makes a lot of
Maybe
sense.
that's in a lot
Yep.
of man. We grow such a great tree.
Yep.
Best tree in the
The
business.
best there is.
Best there is. That's
Yep.
right.
So Glenn Garner texted me the other day. He said his sawtooths are loaded, and they have a
Well, they had a complete failure last year for whatever reason.
Everywhere.
You couldn't find them. And I knew, I mean, I yielded Dudley always, but I knew they were going to just super,
be prolific.
I had
this
so
year.
many phone calls about that. And best I can tell, like 3 people had one tree that out of everybody I talked to.
It had to be that sudden massive freeze thing.
Yeah,
I can't figure out what else it was.
Yeah.
They would cause it across. But anyway, we regress.
Sorry, Hayden.
We talk about trees
and acorns.
all day long.
So Hayden, Mitch, I'm looking at both y'all. Let's do a little television show with Hayden. Mitch, you loved fish. You'd be the guy. Go in bed with him for a day, and let's learn about.
I want to go.
Let's learn about. I'm gonna probably go on that.
Oh, God, here we go. I'm always getting bumped.
But we need to do. I'm just kidding about me, but we need to do one with him.
I'm down as long as I can bring a fly rod.
Oh,
I have 2 or 3 guys that fish with me yearly that bring a fly rod, and that's all we use.
there you go. Right up
go.
Mitchell's
That'd be fun.
alley.
All right, so we're gonna set that up.
That's cool.
It's been really interesting to get to meet you, and
Yeah,
I've
100%.
heard so much about you and your talents. I'm I'm amazed that you're so young
Yes, sir.
and you're so.
Good old Mississippi.
You've learned it fast. That's for sure.
Well, what we learned, the one thing for sure is that above all of that, I mean, he processes information and he retains it. But the key above all, and he said it, he loves it
fish,
so
that's
much.
right.
And we talk about maintaining your sense of wonderment, and that's for everything. He's never lost the wonderment of catching his first one a long time ago. He still has maintained that. That makes all the difference in the world.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Do you have like a website or a Facebook page people can follow
I do
you or anything?
Facebook, Hayden Jeffries Fishing. I post on there regularly.
Is that where they can find out more information about booking with you?
Yeah, send me a message on there.
Do you ever do tutorials on LiveScope?
There's a lot of videos out on YouTube and different places. I'm actually in the process of trying to start getting more of that out.
I think you'd be good at that. I would think people might even book a trip just to learn, to spend a little time with you to teach them how to run their
We do that a
equipment.
lot, for sure. For sure.
I'm gonna,
Coach Jeffries.
Bobby's going to book a trip.
yeah. I'd love to go with you. I would.
Now he's going to have his own ex with him, so just be careful.
This has been fun. Do you ever have that happen?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you turn around and say, please don't do that?
That's why he got dropped the guy off the boat.
I mean,
right now.
that's probably par for the course.
It's part of
you
it.
take people to your spots, and then a week later, you come back and see that guy in their own boat in your spot.
For sure. I took a guy to a brush pile one day, and he beat me to it for 3 weeks straight. I finally gave up on it. I said, "Well, that's his
This
spot.
guy wants
That's
it.
his spot."
That doesn't seem
That's
right.
cool. You got that attitude, though. You know what I mean? There's other fish.
Just
places
move
to fish.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just move on.
Yeah. How about that?
He's a lot nicer guy than you would be as a guy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah.
I mean, there's some good videos out there of people
Bobby-
just losing their minds.
Yeah, Bobby would never
I
Fishing
watched
boats.
one this morning.
You can
Yeah.
never be a guide because you'd be always so paranoid they were going,
Take your spot.
I probably would. I probably would. You're right. I need to work on that. I need my therapy sessions. I need to work on that.
Yeah. I'm glad you're seeing a psychologist.
Mitchell, have we covered everything?
I think we have everything.
Yeah. So, guys, the television
Television
show is
show,
about
that's
to start
right.
back the first part of July. It'll be on the Outdoor Channel
Yeah.
Tuesday nights. 8 o'clock.
Magazines en route.
That's right. The
Magazine.
summer issue looks really good.
Looks good.
We did not mention the peanut patch
Well,
being
I
on.
was just going to say, I mean, you're on your way to go fishing.
Nothing better in the boat than those things.
And have y'all tried these buffalo ones?
We tried them yesterday. They're delicious.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Hayden, you like boiled peanuts?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to hook you up, buddy.
The peanut
Courtesy of
patch.
the peanut patch.
Man, I bet every gas station around Grenada, Enid, Sardis, all of those lakes have.
It really is the
peanut
perfect outdoor
patch.
snack. It really is.
Yeah.
So hot and spicy, buffalo, original. I'll quit talking about them.
All right, guys. This has been fun. Hayden,
Yeah.
you got
Thank
any
y'all for
questions
having
for
me.
us?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
You ever watch our television show?
I do.
Yeah.
Hey,
I've been watching it for a long time.
That's like third or fourth person.
You ever listen to our podcast?
I do.
Look at this.
We're killing it today.
He, it looks like he kills a good deer every year.
Yeah.
So
We'll
so
take
you
credit
might not
for
turkey
that.
hunt, but I have seen some
I kind of grew up.
grip
I
and
grew
grins
up
with bucks.
I grew up deer hunting until fishing really took off, and then there was a couple years there where I didn't hunt.
Yeah.
And I was just really, fishing, and kind of the last couple years I've gotten back into it, And this year I killed the biggest deer I've ever killed, and
All right.
it was awesome. So
There you go.
Do you think listening to our podcast helped you kill that deer?
maybe.
He didn't say
It has
didn't.
been fun though, getting back into hunting. I kind of went into it with a different mindset. I'm now looking at the trophy side of it. Don't know when I'll ever kill a big deer, but now I'm looking, I'm actively chasing one.
Yeah.
So it's been fun to study them
It's a
and
fun
watch them and
challenge.
try to learn the behaviors. And
Yeah.
I've
I don't
enjoyed
think
it.
I'd want him studying and watching and being after me after seeing
That's right.
how good he
As
is
a
at
Tennessee
it.
on
Yep.
those
Yeah.
crappies.
I think if he makes his mind up on something, he's going to
Yep.
do it.
Yep.
All right, Hayden. You've been a lot of fun.
Yes, sir.
And
Yeah.
good luck in your career.
Yeah.
It'd be a lot of fun to watch where you go from here. You're just so talented and so young.
Thank you.
All right. Lanny,
Bobby.
you got anything else?
I think that's it.
Yeah, Dudley, what about you?
Well, I was just going to say, me and little Dud are going to come fishing with you sometime.
There you go.
We can do it.
Yep.
That's your stomping ground, anyways.
Yep.
He was Mr. J.A., weren't you?
No.
No,
Okay.
Mr. Jackson Prep.
Oh, sorry. I get it all messed up.
Evidently, there's a difference.
Yeah, apparently there
Oh,
is.
yeah.
There's a difference.
Arch rival. Arch.
Sorry, I apologize.
And Toxie, what's going on in your world these days? I hadn't seen you a bunch. Are you getting ready to plant duck groceries, or what's going on?
We are protecting a sunflower field, and we've sprayed some clover and done a little bit of careful bush hogging, but we haven't done much at all. It's
tough to get out in the field right now.
Nothing much you can do.
Yeah.
I've got a really good looking garden as far as anything outside, and
You ain't ready to
other
make
than that,
that?
we're keeping the bills paid and the lights on around here.
Well, thank you for doing that. Yeah.
I bet all the tomatoes are cracking
Any red
as
tomatoes?
we speak from all this
You
rain.
know, the fungus blights are worse than ever. So, and the deer, unfortunately, I've got the
got your
garden that
Gallagher
looks
fence
great.
up
I
there?
had not.
We got your
I
Gallagher
have, I
fence
have
up
Just
got
need to
it.
put a Gallagher around your whole yard.
Yeah.
Actually
That's
going to do that today
There you go.
There you go.
because I didn't think I was going to need it, but it looks like it's too much
They
work.
found it. When they
Yeah.
find it, they tend to come back.
That's what I'm fixing to do today.
All right, guys.
Wait till it quits raining. I don't want you to get shocked.
Why don't you say goodbye, Dudley?
Goodbye, Dudley.
Get us out of here, Mitchell.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gamekeeper Podcast. And be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to Gamekeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine and don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronnie Cuz Strickland.